Joining us on the line is Candace Owens. She, of course, is the commentator, the host of the Candace Owens Show, and the author of the brand new book, Blackout, How Black America Can Make Its Second Escape from the Democratic Plantation, destined for the top of the bestseller list. Candace, great to talk to you.
Good to speak to you, Ben. You got me in a lot of trouble.
Well, I mean, to be fair, I feel like you got you in a lot of trouble because you said mean things about Cardi B. And as we all know, you are not allowed to say mean things about Cardi B. In fact, even if you just read the lyrics of her song, that was enough to get me in trouble. Like, at least you got in trouble for saying what you thought about Cardi B. I got in trouble for saying what I didn't think about Cardi B. I actually just read the lyrics to her song and got trended for 2 days. But you went after Cardi B and pointed out that actually Cardi B is not a great interviewer. And apparently this is highly controversial. So why don't you tell us, for folks who missed it, why don't you recap the great Candace Owens versus Cardi B non-rap battle?
Well, first off, what's ironic is before we even shot that Sunday special, you and I were chatting and I'm like, I feel like it's either you or me that's always trending about something ridiculous. Then, of course, this little interview segment and it just goes trending. But, I felt that I was honest in the interview with you and said that, she is illiterate. She proved that very quickly in the Twitter spat and nothing was spelled correctly, and she had no idea what she was talking about in terms of politics. And she probably tried to be intellectual for one tweet when she suggested, that her tax dollars weren't going to education and made some comments about Trump that made entirely no sense. And then she immediately shifted to just insults and name calling, which just showed that she has no intellectual capacity. I mean, in one Instagram video where she was holding her Barbie doll, she accused my husband, who is white. He accused his father of being in the UK Ku Klux Klan. For those who don't know, my father-in-law is in the House of Lords, so she believes the House of Lords is the United Kingdom's Ku Klux Klan, which is quite incredible. She attacked my unborn child and said that my unborn child thinks that I have a dry AP, the opposite of a WAP. It was really childish and ridiculous. And I was just saying, look, Joe Biden used you. And she just went and proved every point that we made in the interview, that he went after someone that has no intellectual capabilities simply because she has a large following.
So, Candace, this obviously has some broader ramifications for the political conversation that's going on right now. So you're obviously one of the creators of Blexit, about Black Americans leaving the Democratic Party and moving toward the Republican Party. Cardi B is a Democrat for reasons that have yet to be ascertained. I remember praising her little rants about where are my tax dollars going when she started screaming about where her tax dollars were going. And then she supported Bernie Sanders, which seemed like a bit of a shift. But as you pointed out to Cardi B, Black Americans are allowed to not be Democrats, especially when they examine the policy. You've been ripped up and down for taking that position over and over again. So do you foresee that in this upcoming election, Donald Trump is going to win a shocking number of black voters? The polls seem to show that he is going to win an increased number of black voters.
I have been saying for the last 3 years, 20 points in 2020. I think Trump is going to secure 20% of the black vote. And I think based on what we're seeing, in the media with this obsession with the race narrative, the left knows that. And that's why they're sort of getting all of these organizations to capitulate to the Black Lives Matter narrative, the NBA, all of these players kneeling and for the national anthem and pretending that Black Americans, like police officers, represent an existential threat to Black America. So I see in all of the craziness that's going on, I see desperation. And I think what we're possibly seeing is the last wheels of a dying animal that is the Democratic Party.
I think that one of the reasons that people were so upset about both you and me going after Cardi B is because the Democrats have really created a nature preserve in the cultural community. They really believe that they have sole control over every aspect of American culture. So when you call out Cardi B, or when I say that WAP is a bad song, which it is, when you say any of these things, then they feel very threatened by this. And you can see this in the new standards for the Oscars. I don't know if you've been following this controversy yet, Candace, but the Oscars recently, as in last night, came out with new rules as of 2024. You actually have to fulfill certain rules in order for your picture to be eligible for Best Picture, including a certain level of Black LGBTQ or female representation on screen, stories that feature Black LGBTQ or, I guess, deaf people, really, this is something in there, on screen, or a certain number of background actors or interns who are Black, LGBTQ, female, or deaf or disabled in some way. Is there going to be a backlash culturally against all of this? Because it does make things rather boring.
I mean, not even rather boring, just also rather senseless. Like, what are we going to, picture old England and pretend that there were a bunch of Black and LGBTQ people walking around when you do historical accounts of things and wars that happened? I mean, are we going to pretend that during the Revolutionary War it was all African American men fighting for the country? It's foolishness, you know what I mean? And it again is part of their effort to continually erase true history. We understand, of course, across the board that bad things happened everywhere in the entire world, but pretending that they didn't and trying to not whitewash but actually blackwash all of history. It's dangerous. And, the 1619 Project with the New York Times, this all falls into the same vein of them just being completely detached from reality and trying to detach the rest of us, including, the future American generations away from the reality of what happened in this country.
And Candace, on a broader level, one of the issues that has come up in the last couple of weeks is the critical race theory issue. And the Democrats have been trying to downplay this. Members of the media have been trying to downplay critical race theory. And the reason that it's come up is because it was actually being taught in sort of these diversity trainings at the federal government level. It's become incredibly prevalent on American university campuses, critical race theory, which is the idea, effectively speaking, that all institutions in American life are institutions of power and thus institutions of historic white supremacy. We're seeing this play out in America's streets with all the violence and with the anti-police move by the Democrats. Maybe you can speak to exactly what the Black community's perspective is on policing, because I think there are a lot of misnomers about what Black Americans actually think about the cops. If you watch the media, all you get is that Black Americans think that the cops are evil and racist and out to hurt them. And then when you look at the polls, you see that 81% of Black Americans actually want the same number or more police in their community.
Right. I would say what the left is working on right now is the younger generation of Black Americans who are actually growing up believing that police are dangerous and police want to kill them because of this sort of media brainwash that's going on and propaganda on a mass scale. So it's very alarming when you speak to a young Black child or you see those videos where they say, I'm scared to go outside, because that's how much the media has harped on this false narrative. But in terms of the older generation, they're smarter than that. They've lived long enough. They've lived in those neighborhoods. They know who the real threat is. They know that, when you remove police officers, it's not like, okay, suddenly police officers are gone. It means that there's a vacuum, and people that fill that vacuum tend to be gangsters. You're breeding a world in which the Bloods and the Crips come back into power and are running the streets. And of course, you remove police officers. I say to people that say defund the police, you might as well come outright and say kill more Black people, because it means exactly the same thing. And we're seeing that across the board right now. If you look at any major inner city, there's a minimum of 150% increase in Black deaths, in shootings and deaths in these inner cities because of this push to defund police initiatives.
We're speaking with Candace Owens. Her new book is Blackout: How a Black American Can Make Its Second Escape from the Democratic Plantation. Of course, she's host of the Candace Owens Show. So, Candace, you've been talking a lot about both politics and culture. When it comes to the inequality issues in America between Black and white, which is what we all focus on. We never focus on inequality between white and Asian because, of course, that would suggest that perhaps not all inequalities are driven by the system. Maybe some inequalities are driven by differences in personal choice. But when we talk about curing some of the inequalities between Black and white, particularly in the economic and socioeconomic sphere, do you think that those solutions are going to come more from culture, or do you think they're going to come more from politics? Because you and I discuss politics all day, and it seems like politicians are constantly pledging they're going to fix these problems. It seems to me that these problems are not fixable in the realm of politics, a lot of them. How exactly should we be spending our time focusing on bettering people's lives? More in the cultural sphere or more in the political sphere?
I say it's a joint effort. I'm very against welfare programs, which I believe incentivize bad behavior. And there are a ton of government programs that incentivize and encourage bad behavior. And so in that effort, even in talking about the Department of Education and what they're putting into the school systems, that's where the government can take a step back from the things and the ideologies that they're teaching Black America. But mostly it's cultural. We have to fix it. And I said this when I was on your show. We have to fix this broken baby mama culture at the same time that we uplift and we celebrate artists that talk about gats and guns and gangs and strippers and baby mamas and how many men you can sleep with, where at the same time we complain and say, why does the public have this view of us? It's in our music. It's what we listen to. And, I wrote this in my book that Confucius said a quote that if you want if you want to assess the morals of any society, listen to its music. If you take that quotation and you apply it to Black America, it's terrifying to realize where we're at. We have to, raise a more respectable culture. We have to stop saying to young Black kids that are intelligent, like what was said to me when I was younger, stop acting white. And people believe that these are values, attributes of whiteness. When you speak proper English, when you work hard, when you dress well, and that is kind of the plague of Black America. And people like me who aren't fearful to say that and admit that get attacked. We need to reassess our heroes, our idols, and all of that work has to come from within.
And Candace, it is incredible how much of this also comes from white elites, the Robin DiAngelos, the white people on college campuses who spend an awful lot of time suggesting that bad behavior is actually okay behavior or good behavior if it is done disproportionately in a minority community, even though it is ineffectual behavior when done by anybody. I was pointing this out to my wife the other day, is that across the board, regardless of race, right now our culture glorifies single motherhood in an extraordinary way. And my wife, who decided to get married and then wait several years before having children until we could afford it, until we felt that we could handle it, and now we have 3 beautiful kids. She's not a heroine in any of these stories, right? She's a doctor who has 3 children and was raising these kids while she was in residency. She's not a hero in any way, but if she'd gotten knocked up at 17 and then had a kid and then been on welfare, regardless of race, then she'd be lionized by the culture and seen as some sort of a heroic figure. What do we have to do to shift this? Because I don't think it's purely a racial issue. It seems like there are a lot of white folks pushing this too.
Right. And we have to hire our expectations. And that's really what we're seeing. And that low bigotry of expectations, we're seeing the infantilizing of Black America, especially, but across the board. But there is a focus on Black America. Like we should be expected to do nothing ever because 400 years ago we were slaves. It's absolutely senseless. And we are right now living in a land of opportunity. I think a lot of what I see is cowardice. I think most of these people are fearful. You and I both know it is not easy. It takes a lot of work day in and day out to find success. You fall down a lot of times, you make a lot of mistakes, and it takes a certain amount of character and courage to keep moving forward. But right now, these people are told, be fearful of success. Success is wrong. Back away from that, and that is ultimately just a tremendous act of societal cowardice, where kids don't really want to try anymore. And you're absolutely right. The culture glorifies that, and there's so much wrong about that. The people that are behind that know that it's wrong and allow these people to be given platforms to pretend that there's some level of normalcy to it. But I do think that people like you and I are changing that. I think just having the courage to say, no, it's wrong, right? To say this song is bad, to say, no, Cardi B should not be interviewing Joe Biden. That's a shift that didn't even exist 3 or 4 years ago. So I'm proud of it.
Well, Candace Owens, again, her book is Blackout: How Black America Can Make Its Second Escape from the Democratic Plantation. Also, she will be reportedly eulogizing Cardi B at her funeral, is what I have heard. Candace, really appreciate the time. Good to talk to you.
Thanks, Ben.
I hope you enjoyed that clip from The Ben Shapiro Show. If you did, go ahead and hit the subscribe button so you stay up to date on all of our future content.